Welcome to Books in the Freezer, a podcast dedicated to the deliciously disturbing world of horror fiction. I'm your host, Stephanie, and today I am joined by Yaika Sabat and Clay McLeod Chapman to talk about the 2024 Summer Scares picks and the program in general. So, welcome to the show.
Hello.
No.
I'm so excited to have you guys on today.
I'm excited to be here.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and the Summer Scares program?
Yeah, so this I've been part of the Summer Scares, I think, unofficially for a few years, officially starting this year. My day job is working for Novelist, which is a book database that public libraries use. And the Summer Scares program is the Horror Writers Association's summer reading program. The goal is really to encourage reading horror all year round. It's not just something that is meant for October. It's always around. It's always good. And as part of that, we pick 9 titles. We pick 3 adult, 3 teen or YA, and 3 middle grade that give library workers sort of a solid starting point. So they have something that they know they can trust to recommend, and they can sort of build a fun, spooky summer program if they want to from there.
It's amazing, right? It's the best thing ever. It's like imagine your library saying, "We love these books and they're going to scare the pants off of you and we want you to read them." And it doesn't matter if you're in middle school, it doesn't matter if you're in high school, it doesn't matter if you're an adult. Like these are the books that we think are like this is what we have come together to say, like, we love these books. And I don't know, like, it just feels the kind of the privilege of being able to talk about books that you genuinely love for a whole summer. I yeah, I feel lucky. I guess I should say I'm the I got to they picked this is crazy. They picked me to be this summer spokesperson, which is insane. Um and I love it. And I just get to talk about books that I love.
And Clay was previously one of the authors, with the remaking, I believe. And yeah, that is I love it. It's kind of like a fun summer reading program for me
Yeah.
too, because I get to sort of read the books. The selection process is, I have to say, a pretty fun one. The committee, we sort of chat about what books, we've been hearing about, we've been reading. There are some rules in the selection process, like we can go back, I think, as far as 10 years. We do think it's important to feature backlist titles because a lot of the time the new books are the only ones that get attention. So we try not to have just new books, which is really hard because there's so many good new horror books right now. It was like the hardest challenge. Like, no, 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 we need to diversify. And we also try and have wide representation. So we are not going to have more than 50%, white, cis, straight male authors. I think we always aim for at least 30% diversity in our selections, which I really love because it's not that hard. Horror is more diverse than people think, and there's a lot of amazing authors out there. So it's a fun process, like for us too, getting to talk books like together and then narrow it down to some final picks. And I love that it also is for every age range because I've been
Yeah.
reading horror since I was probably too
Wow.
young. And so I think it's really important to give that access to kids too, to let
Yeah.
them know like it's okay to be scared. It's fun to be scared. It's an adventure to read these stories. So
Yeah, to be a part of that, those initial planning sessions, the selecting like sessions, like it was amazing because everybody had a favorite book or a favorite author, and the kind of level of passion that folks would, you know, offer up for, like, why it has to be this Rachel Harrison book, like
mhm.
why it has to be, like it was amazing to kind of like the minutia of particular authors to be like, could we do this book? Well, what about this book? And like talking about the value of like, you
Oh,
know, a body of work from a particular author, and how, you know, it's so impossible to like, because certain books kind of bring out certain things in certain people, and to have so many different books, you know, it's good problems to have. But it was
Yeah.
amazing to, uh, you know, I'm thinking particularly of Rachel, just because she has such a large body of work, and it was like, well, I want to do The Return. Well, no, I want to do Cackle, and no, it's got to be Such Sharp Teeth. And like, what is the thing? How do you distill any particular author when they have an oeuvre?
yeah. Well, I want to know about the process. I mean, is it like a March Madness bracket? Like, what does it look like? Do people come up
So
and like lay their case?
kind of. It's not
Okay.
a bracket, but we do start. Oh gosh, I forgot. The first list is literally like just as many as like literally any book that you think might work. And the whole committee, like there's this huge document. You just put in any book you think is going to work. Um and then I think it goes down to like maybe 10 for each age range. Um and you put your name next to the ones, which is kind of fun because you're like, oh, this person's on my side, for this book. You see like little you see who's like excited about what. And then you sort of just narrow from there, so it goes from like 10 to like 8 to 4, to the final 3. And yeah, every time you meet, you're like, okay, and now, before you move on, is there anyone else who really wants to like go to bat for this book? And then the like fun discussions start. And I will say Rachel Harrison was a fun one because I think everyone was like on board. Like we were like, yes, Rachel Harrison. But yeah, there were different opinions. It was like Such Sharp Teeth or Cackle or The Return. It was
Yeah, they all have
I was
such different vibes and,
they
cater to
do.
different audiences. And everyone that's Rachel Harrison fan, has a favorite, has a
Yes.
baby.
Yeah, how do you distill any given author? You know, if
Yeah.
they're 2 books in, 3 books in, like, you know, it's picking your favorites is tough. But then you're like, well, what is your gateway book? Like, what's the
Yeah.
book that you
Mhm.
feel like is going to lead any reader to, like, I want to read another book by this author, I want to read the next book by, do you are you a purist, and do you do them in chronology, or do you say like, no, like, you can hop around?
And part was also, like you said, you can't just I don't think you can distill an author into one book. And so then it becomes a sort of, how do the books work together? Like, how do the selections work as a team? Is there a certain theme they all have? Is there a balance? Because horror is a lot of things. So it can be like a horror comedy, it can be really dark, and psychological, it can be bloody. So you sort of also have to look at balancing the three. So it's not all one type of horror, because another, part of this whole project is showing people the variety of stories you can get in horror. Like I am very much team there is a horror book for every single person. They just
Mhm.
have to find it. And so hopefully this helps people try different types of books.
It's a sampler. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
it's a horror platter.
It's a menu.
Sample platter. This is the TGI Fridays, and this is your app sampler. Don't they have that? Like, don't they have like a, what is it, like
Oh,
the poo
yeah,
poo
I'm
platter
sure.
to
Like
like,
Chili's does. It's like
yeah.
the mix of all their appetizers on one massive plate.
I'll have a little bit of that. That's spicy. Okay, I'll have a little bit of that. Ooh, that's, I don't know if I'll take that one. I'll hop to the next one. Crunchy.
I did notice that about the selection, that it's a wide range. I mean, on Books in the Freezer, we use the temperature scale, the room
Mhm.
temperature fridge and freezer, and I saw that even within the selection. And like, My Aunt is a Monster is very approachable. Like, it's a book I would give to like any kid. But it's really
Oh, yeah.
fun. It's a fun story.
Yeah, but then you got the nest. I
Oh,
the
I yes.
the nest. Like, I don't
The
know if I'm
two
jumping ahead too
No,
much,
like
but like,
let's
No, no,
let's
go.
let's pivot into talking about the books chosen.
Let's talk about that nest.
I think that in the notes for it was just like scary, like all capital, like bold letter, like scary. And I was like, oh, good. I love that.
It's amazing because there are certain books that are they kind of take on this urban legend status, this kind of mythic status, and vividly remember uh, Mallory O'Mara, who does Reading Glasses podcast. She like 2 Octobers ago, 2 years ago, she was like, "You got to read this book," and I was like, "What is it?" And she's like, "It's called The Nest," and I was like, "Ooh, that sounds good." And she's like, "It's for middle schoolers," and I'm like, "What?" And she's like, don't don't listen. Like it is the scariest book known to man." And I was like, "Okay." She mailed me a copy.
Oh,
She knew I was a
she was
doubter.
committed. She's
Yeah.
like,
She was
"You
in.
will
She if
I
she
will
wants
hear no excuses. You will read
yeah.
this."
If she gets behind a book, she will get you to read it no matter what. And she maybe sensed my doubt, like my hesitation. So she's like, the next week there was like a copy in the mail. And I was like, "Oh my God." And I was like, "Okay, let's give it a whirl." And I I swear to God, I don't think I've like like when a book just kind of like creeps up on you. This
Mhm.
is like that moment in the movie where you're driving and like the camera is like you are behind the wheel and the camera's like looking at you and you are looking at the person in the passenger seat, and then the other car that just like suddenly like comes out of like nowhere and just completely sideswipes you and like hits your car like that. This is that book. This is The Nest. It comes out of nowhere and completely obliterates you, and it is terrifying. And I can't believe that we're giving this book to middle schoolers because it is for adults, I believe.
I love that. Ali Melanenko came on the podcast and we did an episode about middle grade horror, I think as part of last year's summer scares. And
Yeah.
she recommended The Nest. And I had to immediately reach out to her and tweet her when I finished it. And I was like, "You were absolutely right. Everything you said about this book is 100% true." Horrifying and
And that's
amazing.
but
Amazing.
honestly, I love that. Like, I
Yes.
want there to be a properly scary middle grade novel because when I was in middle grade, like, yes, I liked, some of the more fun, less scary thing, but I wanted to be scared, which was bad. I was a big, big, like, I could not handle being scared. I would have
Yeah,
nightmares about
I
anything,
understand.
but I was still like, I want something actually scary. I don't want like this wimpy thing, so I probably would have read The Nest and then never slept again, when I was in middle school, so I'm glad it wasn't out when I was a child, because I would have been that kid, like,
Terrified of wasps afterwards.
Oh God.
I mean, already terrified of wasps, but yeah, like, would have just been like, "I can't sleep, the wasps,
They're
they'll
speaking
appear."
to me.
Yeah,
But then you get to My Aunt is a Monster, and it's this like,
which I
like it's
love
like
it.
you want to read them in sequence with one another, like it
Yeah,
is. They kind of
That's a
they complete one another in this way that I
well, and
think
then
is
you have
wise.
Ophi's Ghost, which is, I do love the sort of that classic, ghost element. It does have some more seriousness to it. It has a little bit more of the atmosphere to it. So I think it's at a nice sort of middle place in that set. You've got My Aunt is a Monster, which is beautiful and emotional and a joy to read, and then The Nest, which will keep you up at night. And then Ophi's Ghost, which does have definitely that horror element, but not to the extreme of The Nest. So I really love the middle grade section this
yeah.
year.
It's got a good range.
It does. And I can actually, if you want, I can go over all the
Yeah.
titles for this year. For the adult selections, we have Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison, Jackal by Aaron E. Adams, and This Thing Between Us by Gus Moreno. For young adult, we've got All These Bodies by Kendare Blake, Dead Flip by Sarah Farazan, and Murder Trending by Gretchen McNeil. And for the middle grade audience, we have Ophi's Ghosts by Justina Ireland, The Nest by Kenneth Opel, and My Aunt is a Monster by Raymena Yee. Such a good group this year.
It is such a good group. Um, I'm trying to make my way through all of them. I only have like
Mhm.
2 books left to be fully caught up. But I just finished Murder Trending, and that
Oh,
was
yes.
so fun.
It's so good. Did you have a favorite character in Murder Trending? Like a teen that you were just like, "This is my person."
It was the protagonist.
Nice, nice.
But yeah, I loved the setting, kind of like this Black Mirror prison reality TV Alcatraz.
It was yeah, it's really fun and timely, and, I love that when I talked to Gretchen, on the book list YA panel for Summer Scares, and she was talking about how she channeled a lot of, like, anger. Like, she wrote it really quickly because she was just sort of fueled to write it, um, and it is, like, it's still today so relevant,
Mhm.
and I definitely had my favorites. I will say I was very attached to, Ethan. He was, kind of the jock
See the
who
action movie
quoted
guy?
Yes, he
Yes,
was my little
okay.
baby bird. I loved him so much. It's just like I was like, "Sweet baby Ethan, just a heart of gold,
He
not a
was.
lot of brain, but
No, it's a
just"
himbo.
Yeah, but he was there. He was ready to die for people, just I loved him. He's
It's
too
all
good for
about
this
the
world.
commitment.
Yeah.
Have Have you read All These Bodies yet?
I read it a few years ago, but I
Oh,
remember
Yeah.
really liking it.
Oh my God.
yes.
I Of all the books on the list, straight down, like the less I personally feel like the less you know about that one going in,
Mhm,
Mhm.
the better. Like I kind of purposefully avoided reading any of the kind of back covers of any of the
Mhm.
books. But that one, it rewards kind of a clean experience, like a pure experience of like
mhm.
not having anyone else kind of tell you what it's about so
Yeah.
that you can kind of navigate that feeling. It's so
Yeah.
mysterious, so kind of alluring, and it's like, I think I know what this is. But then you're like, oh, wait a minute. This is something totally, totally different. And
Mhm.
that's a rarity these days. Like so many books kind of or people kind of like you kind of know going in what a movie's going to be, what a book is going to be about, and it's
Yeah.
because we're so inundated with trailers and like synopses and like but I feel like if I was to recommend All These Bodies, it would be don't like just take my word on it. Just please read this. Don't read anything about it. Don't look at Goodreads. Just go in blind and have the kind of pure joy experience of entering a world completely unbeknownst to what is coming.
It was very atmospheric.
Hmm.
So atmospheric, and so it's not fast paced, but it is gripping.
Mhm.
Like, it's not like a necessarily action-packed book, but I still was like, because I listened to most of my books in audiobooks, I still was just like, "I'll just keep listening to this as I, like, do the dishes and put away laundry and sit in my bedroom just listening to it."
Yeah.
Because once you get going, you wanna keep going on that journey with the character. You
Yeah.
want to see how this ends up. Um, yeah, it's really beautifully done.
God, I can't even imagine what the audiobook of that what that would be
It's
like.
it's really good. It's
Yeah.
really it's well done. The narrator is wonderful. I really enjoyed it as an audio experience.
I have not gotten to Dead Flip yet. It is like one
Oh,
of my last 2 to get to.
It
Dead Flip. You go ahead, Clay. Go ahead.
Well, I love it because I am of a particular age where I grew up in a particular decade that had particular, you know, quantifiers and signifiers and, eh, today's Stranger Things was yesterday's Goonies and, like
Mhm,
I'm a Goonie boy. I'm a Goonie. And I feel like this really kind of it hits those sweet spots. um I think today anyone in YA would read it and be like, oh, like this is hitting all my Stranger Things sweet spots. But like it goes to that place where it's like, no, it's not Stranger Things. It's my Goonies, it's my Poltergeist, it's my, it's of the era. And I don't know, like I love that, I'll put I'll pull my tube socks all the way up my shins and put my sweatband on, and I'll jazzercise. I'll do it for this book.
That's another book where actually I think honestly, I think all of the YA, the teen selections really do beautiful characterization. The characters in each book you really get to know, and in Dead Flip, I loved the experiences they were going through. You have someone who it comes from an immigrant family, who is by its nature in a town that's not exactly full of people like him. There's some pressure there. You've got a girl discovering her sexuality and sort of the fear and anxiety that can come with that, that worry, and you see how she sort of closes herself off, and then you have this little kid who shouldn't be a little kid anymore, who's so mischievous, like like before the, bad thing happens to him, which I won't give away, everything, it's more mischief, and then you start to sort of understand it's mischief and anger at being left behind, which I think is, uh, such a such a real emotion. Like, it just felt really grounded in reality, even with the sort of, like, haunted pinball aspect of it. Um, yeah, I loved reading it. And I also love the idea of a haunted pinball. It's like it's just like, it's a great hook. It's so much more than that, but it's such a great hook, like haunted pinball machine in the '80s/90s. Like, I'm in, like,
That's
immediately.
that's enough for sure.
Yes.
If you were gonna
I was
go
gonna say on
into
the
it.
adult side, I will also nerd out about the
Okay.
adult side, but I was especially excited that This Thing Between Us,
Mm.
uh, was selected. I think I did suggest that one, and I had just read it, and I love that book so, so much. It I was reading it, and I remember at one point stopping and telling my partner, like, "I'm genuinely, like, creeped out. I'm creeped out. Like, I've got, like, in my bones." Like, and it wasn't anything particular, but the scene just happened, and this sort of antagonist was speaking, and, like, I feel it. Like, I feel, like, a chill
Yeah.
down my spine, and that hadn't happened in a long time. It made me so happy. I was, like, giddy. Um but it's so well written. It's such a wonderful look at grief, and it has such a genuinely creepy, antagonistic force,
Yeah.
in it. I yeah, I'll read anything by Gus Moreno now because that book was just it was perfect to me. I had
Yeah.
no notes.
He's on it too. He's writing something now.
I'm so excited.
Stephanie, you were the first. You were the first person to tell me about this thing between us. And I remember it was when I was on
Yeah.
here and we were doing grief horror, and that was one of your picks. And I hadn't read it. And it was so like the year it came out, because that was like 2022, was
I
it?
think so, yeah.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it was phenomenal because like there's certain books that they get the word of mouth. Like, and I think this thing between us was like an absolute total word of mouth book. You would hear other people talk about it before it kind of came on your radar, popped onto my radar. And it started with you, Steph, and then again Mallory. Like, I feel like I should just follow Mallory wherever she goes and whatever she recommends. But like everybody started talking about it. Rachel Harrison started talking about it. Like
Mhm.
everybody was like, "Have you read this book? Have you read this book?" And and I and it's so funny how like certain books, they just that like the goodwill of everybody just wanting you to read it. Like like it's so it's common, like, "Hey, what are you reading? Like what was the last book that you read that you really liked?" But like people went out of their way to be like, have you read this thing between us? Do you know this thing between us? And it it became not a choice, frankly. Like, it was like, you have to read this book. And they're right. That's the thing. Everybody is right. That book is phenomenal. And it is, I mean, I'm so miffed that this is his first friggin' book. That this is like the debut bastard. Like, it's like Gus, like, he did it. Like, it's what you were saying, Yaka, where it's just like the kind of like the purity of the emotion, that like the kind of
Mhm.
honesty, the rawness of that grief. It it there's no bells and whistles to it. There's no kind of like patina of like, it doesn't layer itself up in some sort of like literary like it doesn't feel false. Like, it just feels
Yeah.
honest. And that is so rare. And you feel like he's talking just straight to you,
Yeah.
and he gut punches you.
Oh my gosh, the way that novel opens too. Like when I was prepping for our episode on grief horror, I remember just like thumbing through that first chapter and crying, just rereading that first chapter at his wife's funeral where he is addressing his deceased wife and telling her what she's missing at her own funeral and what he's feeling.
Oh my God.
For it to like capture that emotion and then go into horrifying horror in the second half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People can't see it. I literally got teary-eyed. Like, you think you want to see I cried 3 times reading that book. And I think that's why it's so effective. Like, I think that is why it's so scary, because it is just driven by emotion. And I don't know how he captured it so well, but it's like the fear feels so real, the uncertainty feels so real, the sadness feels so like profoundly deep. Um yeah, I've been recommending it to everybody. And correction, I checked, it is 2021 actually.
Okay.
No,
So no one
really?
comes at us later like, yeah, October 2021 apparently.
Frankly, that book came out in 2021. It
Right? I'm
wasn't
like, no,
this year, so
we know. We self-corrected there.
I'm gonna write a
Yeah.
comment in the Instagram post about this podcast episode.
Thank you. I'm gonna keep going now. Just like hop out. Yeah, I think that might have been like one of the first ones I wrote in the like any book you can think of, and I was like, this thing between us. 'Cause I'd read it like the last month. I was like typing faster than I could type. So good.
Ugh.
But it's funny because like, then someone will be like, well, what's it about? And you're like, it's about a haunted Alexa. And they're like,
Kind
what?
of.
I don't want to read
Yeah.
a book about a haunted Alexa. Like there's like a resistance to that. Like, but then you'd be like, no, but it's so much
Yes.
more. It's so much more than just a haunted Alexa.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd be like, I would tell people like the hook is a haunted Alexa. I was like, but it is so much more. It deals with grief and sort of this otherworldly cosmic force, and it's so much more than that. But like, if you need a hook, think haunted Alexa. But that is just a tiny
Mm-hmm.
tiny piece of the story, because sometimes that will hook people, but I'm like, trust me, it's not just like a gimmicky book. It's You have to read it. And like shoving it in people's hands. Read the book. Yeah.
Read the goddamn book.
Just
Read
like
this thing about us.
seriously.
Read it.
Like, I'm gonna follow up with you in a
Did you
month.
read it? Did you read it
You'll
yet?
have read it. I'll have questions. No.
I haven't read it yet. Well, read it.
Yeah, they're just like, oh God.
You're not invited to the wedding until you read this book.
It's the wedding favor.
She's literally just,
In the
here you
gift
go.
bag. Do people do
My
wedding gift bags?
oh God, my yaya is just like calling me horrified a month later. Like, what did you give me? You need to go
Why?
to church.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh man. I was so excited about all the adult picks because they were all books I had already read and I was just like, yes, yes, and yes, 100%.
Bangers.
Yeah.
Bangers. All
yeah.
of them. Every last one. Like, there is not a dud. I mean, the whole list, the whole goddamn thing
It's
is
all
like,
so
it's just,
good.
yeah. And it makes the job easier to talk about them. And there were a lot of other ones that that we really wanted on that list, but like there's this, like, to just step back and say, oh wow, this is who we get to talk about.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like any chance I get to talk about Jackal,
Mhm.
it's that book. It's it's amazing, and I do think you can say this about a lot of the other books as well, but like Jackal in particular, like it feels real, even when the supernatural kind of seeps in to the storytelling. Like I would still, like I think Erin does such an amazing job about how she writes the book that I'm like, yeah, this I could see this happening. It's like, well, you realize what this book is about, right? And it's like, yeah, but I mean, like, it happened, right? Like, there's it just feels lived in and honest and true to the extent that like, and I want to talk about the things that I don't want to give away, but like when elements that are not of this world suddenly seep into the narrative, like it just feels like, sure, yeah, I could see that happening. Like that's
Yeah.
totally real, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's accurate. It happened to me last week. Like you're just
Thanks.
like, yeah, totally.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, the characterization is so like deep right away with this girl going back home and the relationship with her mom and the relationship with her friends and just this setting. It all just does feel so real.
Yeah.
And there's I think one thing I really like about Jackal is, as I was saying, like there's a horror book for everyone. Sometimes you need a book that has sort of crossover appeal, and Jackal does have that mystery element, and some
Mhm.
people, lean more towards calling it a thriller. You could absolutely call it that, but definitely definitely horror.
Yeah.
So I love a book that can do that. I will sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I get a little frustrated when horror is just automatically called thriller.
Mhm.
Mm.
Like I know genre is ultimately fake, but still. But Jackal really does. Like Jackal really fits into more than one category. And I think it does touch on something that's very real. This idea, this little Rust Belt town and being very much the other, where you're in a town and there's not many Black people, there's not many Hispanic people,
Yeah.
and there's an innate horror to that, that's sort of built in of constantly being different than everyone around you. And I think that does lend to the plausibility of it. It is something that, in one way or another, probably a lot of people have been through, just not exactly that experience. And also there's a creepy forest. Like I love a
Yeah.
creepy forest. I'm very much a creepy forest person. Like
Oh my God, that creepy forest. Um, and it's amazing because once you reach the end of the book, like she speaks, there's like an afterword where she's kind of acknowledging like the kind of history of the town that she's writing about. And I don't know, like I did the deep dive of like kind of the kind of requisite, like I finished the book and now I want to Google and I want to find more, like I want to learn about the
Mhm.
place. And it's so, like there's a part of me that wants to call this book like true crime horror. And it's that
yep.
element of like, what is, I know that true crime in of itself is kind of a loaded term, but like there's that element of factual, of historical, of
Mhm.
reality, that
Yeah.
and that kind of line, that strange tension point between the historical and the supernatural, that I think is so seamless, that like when you cross from one into the other, you're just not aware of it. Like it feels
Yeah.
like it's almost like entering into the deep dark woods and not realizing like, oh, it's nighttime and maybe I should turn around. No, like it's too late.
I mean it is. It's the story, it's the idea of, oh, there are Black girls going missing and nothing really seems to be being done about it, and oh, this has been happening for a long time. That is that's real life.
Mm.
That's still missing and murdered Indigenous women. That is
Mhm.
it's absolutely a true fact. And I think that makes everything scarier for me. And it's like, oh
Yeah.
gosh, it's rooted in something that actually does happen. It immediately sort of like I think hits you in a different way. And I am also someone who does the like, oh, I finished a book or I finished it. It's my ADHD searching. Like I must know everything about this.
Yeah.
Um, and the more you like realize how much it actually connects to in the real world, I think the more potent it gets, even after reading something, sort of lingering effects of it.
I just feel like I look, it's funny because like Jackal makes me look differently at the world. Like I feel like that book affected me in a way where like I don't know, like I think I was reading it. I was like outside. You know when you read a book and you're like in an environment and the environment that you are in, not that the book, but that you yourself are kind of physically in, like all of a sudden it's like I'm looking at the stars a little bit differently. I'm looking at the sky a little bit differently. And like that's that's present tense. Like the book is doing that to me. Like I am stepping out of the world of the book and stepping back into the world around me and realizing, oh my God, what is this world? And I don't know. Yeah, Jackal hits hard.
It
It
was a debut,
does.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
God
another one.
damn,
It's like, oh
another
my gosh.
debut. What the frickin' I'm still looking for to hit that hard. And one day I will write my Jackal. Damn it.
You're gonna act like I didn't send you a message about what kind of mother telling you that I was making shrieking noises in my home, I guess, like, and then at some point
Yeah.
my poor part so my partner was like, I don't know, in another room, and I was baking cookies because I do anything to like keep listening to an audio,
Yeah.
like making chocolate chip cookies. And we get to a certain point and I'm like, I literally just go and then I was like, don't you do it, you stop that right now, like as I was listening. And so he hears me like, stop it, like from the kitchen, and then like like that's and I like had to walk in and be like, "Oh, sorry, I'm okay. We just got to like a really intense scene." Because he just hears like, "Stop it!" Like I'm talking like like just. I'm like, "Yeah, Clay, no, your books totally don't hit at all.
I'm
They
gonna be
totally
on my
don't."
deathbed. I'm gonna be on my deathbed, and I'll be like, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren will be surrounding me, and they'll be like, "What do you want to say, Grandpapa?" And I'll be like, "Did I write my Jackal? Did I hit it hard?" And they'll be like, "What the heck is Granddad talking about?" I'll be like,
Jackals? What's going on?
"Jackal." It's like my
It's your
rosebud.
rosebud. Yeah.
Jackal.
Oh gosh.
Can we talk
Now
about
you have to
Rachel?
do that.
Can we
Yeah.
talk
Yeah,
about
yeah,
Rachel?
let's talk about Rachel because
Let's talk
I'm
about
always
Rachel.
happy to talk about Rachel.
Yeah.
Can we like fan out, geek out on Rachel?
Of course.
Who wants to geek out about Rachel?
I will say I was on the such sharp teeth like
Oh, that
team.
was your.
Yeah, I was because it was the one I had like read most recently, but I love that book so much. Like I love it. And I just related to moments in it.
Mhm.
And there's sort of this like constant flow of like repressed but righteous rage at
Mhm.
sort of what people in the world have done to you as a woman, that I was just like, yes, like, like the whole time. Like it just, you get the sort of guttural primal reaction to it. And I think it lends itself so well to the primal aspects, to the sort of werewolf side of this story. I was just like, I just kept being like, yes, as I as I
Yeah.
read it. It's also really like, it's like every Rachel Harrison book. It is witty and it's clever. You're gonna have moments where you're like genuinely laughing.
Yeah.
Um, it like astounds me how she does that so well. Like
She's
she
great
can
at
write
dialogue.
so good at dialogue,
Mhm.
so witty. Like and I just end up loving the character. It doesn't matter with their flaws. Like I just end up wanting to be their friend. Like when I finish the book, even if they're messed up, I'm like, I still kind of love you. I
But
do.
isn't that what makes it so relatable? It's like the kind of warts and
Yeah.
all of it that you're just like,
Yes.
oh, like that's me. Like I do
Mhm.
that. And
Mhm.
It's funny because her protagonists are all so different. Like Annie and Cackle is like very passive and like life is happening to her. And I was like, oh, I see
Mhm.
myself in that in some things. And then Rory from Such Sharp Teeth is not that way at all. And I'm like, I also see myself in this.
you're
You know,
such a
she
Rory.
yeah. Well, and then
Seriously.
you look at like Vesper
Yep.
and
I'm like,
Black Sheep, very different. Like I mean, like Pitch
she's
Black
yeah, she's a
kind of.
badasss. And I'm like, that's
Yeah.
aspirational.
We all want to grow up to be Vesper.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want some of the baggage she has to live with, but, like, we can be friends again. Like, I wanna go hang out
Yeah.
with Vesper. I want her to come with me when I'm shopping, and I want her to
You want a
tell
night on the
Claude and
She's
town.
working
Fiona.
at that restaurant at the beginning, like, she'd be a fun
Yes.
coworker. She
Yeah.
seems
Oh,
messy, you know? She's got
she
good
would be my work
stories.
bestie.
Yeah.
She would be my work bestie for sure. Like, we would be yeah.
It's interesting because I've heard her talk about like how certain books bring out certain things in her readers. And I feel like I was team Return.
Mhm.
And you know, and it is interesting how like I think that's like a lot of, am I gonna say this? Am I gonna say that like a lot of dudes go for the Return? Like the Return is like
The
her
girls strip
bro.
one?
I mean, it's like her bro book, right?
Yeah, I guess I could see
I
that.
could see that. Yeah.
Um, and I think I think maybe she's a little like tired of me saying how much I love the Return. I think a lot of dudes are like, I like the Return, and she's like, okay, thanks. Um, and it's interesting because I think such sharp teeth. If you had to pick the kind of like, if I had to pick the quintessential, if I had to pick the one, I think it would be Such Sharp Teeth. It would be a toss up between Such Sharp Teeth and Black Sheep, but I
Mhm.
think
Mhm.
it would be Such Sharp Teeth. And I think it's because that kind of primal, the rage that is underneath, that
Mhm.
erupts out of the book, is I think the most succinct. I don't know why I keep saying pure, but like it's the most kind of like on. It's like the rawest version of Rachel I think I've ever read. Um, because with Vesper, everything is kind of layered under this kind of
Mhm.
protective shell of like her cynicism, or her kind of like the jadedness is that defensive
Mhm.
measure, but
Yeah.
like the Akram's razor of rage in Black Sheep is so kind of like it just goes straight
Yeah.
out, um to the point where you're just like, whoa, like you can kind of almost feel the wind whisk by when you read it. Like it's like, whoa, did you feel that?
Yeah. Rory has the ability to not forgive easily. I think as as women, you are very much conditioned to like forgive and forget, or to move past things or to be nice about things. And, if you look at Rory and her mother, that and especially, oh my gosh, what's your family? You should forgive your family. That just like, no.
Mhm.
Did you say you're sorry? Then I'm not going to forgive you. There's I was like, I want more of that. Like,
Yeah.
'cause, like,
Uh,
it's so valid.
yeah. And with the whole werewolf side of it, there's scenes where she's at the
Yes.
bar and she's like, I'm not scared of these creepy dudes outside and I feel powerful. Like
Mhm.
I dare them to try me right now. But then also, the day after the transformation where she is
She's
feeling awful.
yeah. Yeah, which I that the, like, I don't feel
And I'm
afraid,
like,
I was like, "Yes, I love
yeah,
that power," but I was also like, "Ooh," I mean, I'm sorry how it's happening, though.
Yeah.
That's a bummer, you know? But, yeah, there is something very just I don't know. I think it's just so relatable. Yes, it
Mhm.
is a werewolf story, and by the way, I love the gruesome descriptions in that book of the
Yes.
transformation, like, because I love a good werewolf transformation on film. Like, I love creature design, and so I was like, "Oh, this would be beautifully done on film with some,
Yeah.
like, practical effects." Um, I love that there is that, like, there's not look they don't look away from that moment, from
Mhm.
the, like, brutality of it. Um, yeah, I was a big fan of
Yeah.
that personally.
Yeah, like I think Rachel has done this amazing job of like, she takes the metaphor, whatever the monster is, whether it's witches, vampires, werewolves, she really she she bends it to the will of the story. So, and it never feels like the metaphor or the monster is never in competition with the kind of human element to it. Like they
Mhm,
fit so damn well. Like she gets her characters, whatever her characters are going through is so applicable to that given monster, that like whether it's antichrists, whether it's take your pick. Like it just feels it fits. I don't know. I don't. I'm wishing I want a better word for it, but like fitting, like it fits.
It doesn't. I think sometimes when you're working with a metaphor, you can like be hit over the head with it so much that it gets to be distracting from the story. It's like, oh, I got it. Werewolf. That doesn't happen when you're reading it. Like
Yeah.
you know it's the metaphor, but it is blended so well that it's never sticking out of the story. It's never making you step out and be like, oh yes, metaphor
Yeah.
as you're going through it. And I like that because I don't love when I'm like, I get it. Like it's a
Mhm.
metaphor. It gets a little old. I didn't have that reading such sharp teeth at all. So,
So
you could tell Clay and I could do an episode on like each of these books. Just
The nest. The nest.
book club with
yeah.
with Clay and Yaika.
I did record an episode with Aaron and Rachel for the adult picks. So we do talk about that a bit more and give like movie
Nice.
comps and stuff. So
Nice.
upcoming.
Yes. No one can see, but I just did a happy shimmy. I was just like, I'm gonna be listening to that episode when it comes out.
All right. Yeah. Such great picks. Like overall, like what a great selection.
Bangers.
All
Thanks.
Bangers.
bangers. All
And
bangers all the time.
I'm gonna be honest, even the like alternate things we considered, like it still would have been a banger list. Like I don't we could have picked like 3 different mixes. It still would have been good. I mean,
There's going to be a
it's
remix,
just
is
there's
what you're
so
saying.
much.
There's the summer.
there's there's just so much good horror. Like,
All right. Well, are we ready to talk chilling obsessions?
yes, definitely. Oh, you know what though? I do want to say, so I don't forget because I just said book club and it jogged to mind. Part of the Summer Scares program is also the programming guide. And for library folks, I've had to do programming before. Sometimes you're thrown into doing programming with no experience doing programming, which is terrifying. Um, so the programming guide, which the wonderful Springfield Green County Library District puts together, it has obviously all the picks and it has book talking for each selection. So even if you haven't read the book, you can talk about it with readers. It has read alikes for each book. But it also has sample programs. So it gives you 4 ideas for programs you could do for each title. So you don't have to try and come up with it on your own. You have some guidance. And it has reading group discussions because I've also had to run book clubs. And it's a challenge. So I do want to point that out because if you are in libraries, please check out that programming guide. It's such a cool little useful like one-stop shop for creating a whole series of programs at your library if you want to. That yeah, I'd be remiss if I didn't give it a shout out.
I'll add it in the show notes. I was looking through it and saw like how
Yeah.
hardcore it was. I was like,
They
oh,
yeah,
you
they
really
really
have everything.
yes, like it is detailed.
Yeah.
And you can keep it as simple as you want. Like maybe you just want to have a book list with the read alike. So maybe you do want to do like a movie program and have a book club series. Like you can go all over the place. So
So yeah, I will have that in the show notes for people to check out for library programming ideas. Okay, well, are we ready to talk some chilling obsessions? What have you been enjoying in horror lately?
so much. So I was thinking about this and I was looking at like what I have on my list to like watch or read, and I think religious horror has been a thing for me lately. And of course, in the theaters, you had Immaculate, you had The First Omen, but I watched The Wailing, which is a Korean horror film, um, for the first time, I think last month. And that film focuses on folk religions in Korea. And it reminded me how much I really enjoy religious horror and how, I mean, obviously, the ones in Catholicism were, I was raised Catholic. So there's like an extra, like, oh, yeah,
Mhm.
I know what this is about. But I'm really enjoying seeing some of the films that are coming out. Yeah, I'm just enjoying seeing what's coming out, and I know the book I can't read it yet, but American Rapture by CJ
Yeah,
Lead
I'm
has
so
come
excited.
out, and I was just like, "Ah!" So I think that's my current kick is just, like, all things religious horror, all different types of religions, like,
I
Yeah.
love
K-
that. Also, I was not raised Catholic, but Catholicism and its aesthetic with horror, like
Catholicism lends itself to scariness.
chef's kiss on that aesthetic,
Yes,
okay?
aesthetic unmatched. Some other things
The
maybe not, but
vibes, immaculate.
yeah, vibes immaculate. It's all about the vibes. Yeah, and I will say, like, First Omen and Immaculate are both sort of with female leads, which I do appreciate because it's obviously a very different experience uh, living with Catholicism for a woman than it is a man. But yeah, that's what I'm all about right now is religious horror stories.
They do make a great double bill too.
Yeah,
Um, I saw Immaculate first and then The First Omen, and I love them both. And I feel like whatever overlap there may be between them is it's not it's not too much so that you feel like,
yeah.
oh, one's better than the other. Like it's like they kind of stand alone, but they kind of prop each other up. They lift each other up.
And I actually read Black Sheep recently, which is also religious horror, and I was just
Mhm.
like, "Ah, the universal parts of just, like, anyone who
Yeah.
is overly religious and how innately terrifying that is perfect." Um, so yeah, I think I'm gonna do a little marathon of movies and books with religious themes.
Um, Let me ask you, have you seen When Evil Lurks?
Yes, I have seen When Evil Lurks. It is a beautiful, like it's, like, religious in the fact that it's in a post-religion world. And it's fascinating world building. I love that director. I love Aterados.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that is a it's I could talk I could do an entire episode on that show. So I'm not gonna get going because it could go forever. So good.
So
So
what have
good.
you been enjoying?
It's kind of incidental, but like I've been on a folk horror kick.
Okay.
Yes.
Um, and it's funny how like obsessions, like there are those obsessions that you seek out, and there are those obsessions that find you. Like you're kind of like I've just been picking up books that seem to be very kind of folk horror-y. I just finished this amazing book called Smother Moss. Smother Moss. I actually don't know if I've ever said that word out loud. I'm reading a book called Smother Moss. And it's Alyssa Allerine. I hope I'm saying that correct. Alyssa Allerine. And that's from Titan, and that comes out soon. There's this other book called Necrology by Meg Ripley. Strange Folk by Ali Dyer. Um, there's like I don't know, like it's just it's been and I've had to blurb a lot of these books, so it's like the like there's like these books kind of just come to me, and it's just like folk horror, folk. Like I'm just living in the woods right now. So, but you won't hear me complain. Um,
Yeah.
I it's not really folk horror, but there's this comic series that I just like. I found it yesterday. I don't know when this episode will air, but as of today, 24 hours have passed since I discovered this comic series called Beneath the Trees, Where Nobody Sees. And I
Okay.
swear to you, this is my new obsession. This is like I'm going to be living in the world of this comic series. Um do you remember those Richard Scarry
Yeah.
children's books? The like the pictures of like the towns with all the like animals, and they're like we're just, wandering down the street like do do do, like I'm an animal and I'm wearing clothes, and like, oh, I fixed the ice cream truck, and like imagine that world. Imagine a Richard Scarry universe with serial killers and uh like it's basically Silence of the Lambs meets Richard Scarry. If Richard Scarry illustrated Silence of the Lambs
Wow.
with
Okay.
animals, and it
Interesting.
is
Interesting.
bonkers. It is
I saw
bonkers.
I saw it described as Dexter meets Richard Scarry, which is why I remember know what you're talking about because I was like, "Well, what is that?" I'm like added it to my list.
Yeah, you have to do it. You have to do it because
Yeah.
it's so quaint and like, how would it do? Like, how's it going, neighbor? Like, like, like. I haven't read anything about it, so like I have to believe that Richard Scarry is the like guiding light because like the illustration style, the way it looks, like everything just screams Richard Scarry to the point where like I mean I I just want to like I just want someone to say like yeah, it's Richard Scarry. Like I want the author to say like yeah, that was Richard Scarry.
That was the inspiration.
Folk horror is my lifelong obsession. I gotta say, that's probably my favorite subgenre. Like, I will watch if someone says folk horror, I was like, I will watch it.
I'll be
I
right
will
there.
read it. You don't need to tell me anything else. I'm in. Like, I just
Done.
just immediately. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Like, always read folk horror.
I watched Late Night with the Devil last night because it
Yeah.
dropped on Shudder.
Yes.
What'd you think?
It was really good. I don't know why I have not been in a horror movie show mood in a while, but I was like, this is one of my like most anticipated movies of the year. And I put it on. I was gripped. Like I stopped folding laundry like 10 minutes in. I'm like, no, what is going on? I am dialed in.
That's how you know it's good. You're like,
Yeah.
nope, not even nothing. Must watch. Yeah.
There's a podcast I listen to, and she talks about a distract instead of Rotten Tomatoes is distracted radishes score. Like, how much am I looking at my phone? And it's like, no, this was like phone, another room. I am here.
Family doesn't exist. Like, my friends and I are planning a watch party for that because we didn't get to see it in theaters. So I like
Mhm.
sent to the group text like it's on Shutter now. Like it has
Yeah.
to happen. So
I think that one's better on watching it at home on the TV, like
Really?
not your computer, but like a television because it's it is an artifact of TV.
mhm.
So to
Yeah,
see it in
that
the
is true.
theaters, it feels kind of like there's an added layer to it. But like if you're at home watching it on an actual
Yeah.
screen, TV screen, like it feels like okay, now this is where it lives. This is where it exists.
Yeah. It's a natural habitat.
Yeah. Well, on to our second tradition on the show, which is to ask our guests for a final girl song. So, if you were in a horror movie, what would your final girl song be?
So as I mentioned, this one was tough because I love movies and I love music. But I did immediately know that it was gonna be Florence and the Machine because I just feel like if you need to survive something, you, like, need that, like, Faye voice, in your head. I think Dream Girl Evil by Florence and the Machine. Um, it has a level of sort of like, "Oh, I'm so sorry that I didn't meet your expectations, but I don't owe you anything." And that to me is perfect. Also, the like just the beat of it, the tone of it is like if I was trying to survive something, I think that could like pump me
Yeah,
up. So I'm gonna have to go with Dream Girl Evil.
I love that. That whole album is
It's perfect.
amazing.
So good.
um, I picked a moody song last time. I picked a I kind of like I don't know if it like I thought of a song that was like this is the song that like would be going through the head of someone who actually was just the final girl, like kind of
Mhm.
stumbling out of the barn where all the bodies are, like drop the machete and just kind of like shuffle off into the sunset. And but I wanted to pick a song this time that felt invigorating, like the song you need while you're final girling.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and which is a lot different. There's like
Mhm.
it's what we were saying before we press record. Like it's like, do you want a final girl song when you're final girling, or do you want the
Mm.
song that helps you recover after being the final girl? Like what's the like how do you like there's just so many different kind of shades and like inflections of final girl. So
Yeah.
um this time I picked a song by a band called Sprints. Sprints? I don't know if
Mm.
anyone's I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this band called Sprints. And they have a song called Literary Mind,
Mm.
and it's 5
Mm.
minutes long. And it's like a kind of it sounds like a duo. I don't know much about this band Sprints, but I love this song. and it's a guy and a girl, and it starts off as kind of like an effectless, like like talking about JT Leroy. Like it's like, they're not talking about JT Leroy, but like imagine those like kind of like hipstery kids. They're like, we're just so cool. It sounds like
Yeah.
I don't know, like the
It's,
Strokes, like
it's honors college music. I was in
yeah,
the honors college in college. I'm like, "Oh, yeah.
yeah. It's like
Honors
bored
college,
indie
like,
rock.
conversation." Yeah.
It's like we're so bored of like talking, but we're at the party and they're like, "Have you heard of this band?" Like, yeah, like, did you read that book? Yeah, I read that book. Like it's like like kind of flat indie rock. And then it gets to the like last 2 minutes. And I swear to God, it's so much fun because it's basically just over and over. It just repeats. She's got a literary mind and a literary heart. She got a literary mind and a literary heart. A literary.
I've
You've
heard
heard
that
it?
song. Yeah.
And like, and then like it just grows and grows and grows to the end where they're just like screeching. It's got a literary mind and a literary heart. And it's like if I was being like cornered by a slasher, by Jason, and I had a machete and I had this song going, I'd be like, yeah, like it would just be like chop 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 choppity chop chop, like you just
Clay's like, "I do have a
yeah,
literary mind," as he's, like, stabbing the
because you want
person.
because don't you want a song that like you could just
Yeah.
chop to?
Yes, that's yeah, Dream Girl Evil. It, like, has this, like, sort of, like, really, like, rhythmic ending, and that's yeah, I was like, "You need
Yeah.
to build up to, like, the
Yeah.
punching." That's
It's like because if
punching
it's just like
rhythm.
pure, like if it's just like wall to wall, you'd be like,
Yeah.
there's nowhere to go. But it's like the cross country of slasher final girling, where it's like you
Yes.
need to work your way up, work like
Yeah.
build into your survival mode.
I like
Chop.
to think of a song that you're, like, really tired and you're like, "Okay," like, you're, like, gathering your breath, and then you're feeling a little empowered, and then the, like, punching, stabbing happens at the end. Like, that that's the
Yeah,
that's the ideal thing, punch and stab with
yeah.
each, like, alternate hands, I
Yeah.
think.
You do just need like a minute, 2 minutes of just like choppity chop,
Yeah.
punch and stab, punch and stab.
Punch and stab.
How are you gonna punch and stab? Like
Punch
you're
and stab.
gonna you need it's like aerobicizing. Like you just need to like, how like
You have your tube socks and your sweatband ready for.
Yeah. Clay's ready.
Yeah.
I
Final
am in
girling,
the
by the way.
mirror. I am like cranking that music up.
Final girling is my new favorite verb. I'm sorry, I'm just final girling right now. I can't talk to you.
I
I'm
can't
too
answer
busy
the
final
phone. I'm final
girling.
girling. Sorry.
Yeah.
The punching and stabbing. All right.
Punching
Well,
and
also,
stabbing.
Clay, you
Punching
have a
and
few
stabbing.
things coming up
Yes.
that I
Yeah.
want to talk about and that I think our listeners want to hear about, or whatever you can say about them. You've
I
been
mean,
teasing some things.
it's fun. It's a fun time. I don't know. I have to find readers. I have to find people who like to read stuff. Um, because I hope they're out there because like I think I have these things that are coming out in the world. And um the thing that we just announced was I have this new book from with Quirk, this new novel, and it's called Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. And it's so weird. It is literally the first time I'm like speaking of it in any kind of public sphere other than social media, which is not talking, it's you're typing. But this is like I have a book and it's called Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, and it is a novel. Oh my God. I don't even know how to talk about it. Like, imagine it's a demonic possession novel, and it's about I don't know. I don't know how to do this. What if half of the country suddenly was possessed by demons? Huh? I don't know. Does that
Yeah, that's a good hook.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, is it? Is that okay? I
I think so,
need to
yes.
workshop this. I need to float some stuff. Like, imagine the country is suddenly possessed by subversive demonic influences that come through your uh, uh, where you choose your news, where you choose your facts, your information, your social media, your, like your screen time, basically. Like
Mhm.
the, the, this is this is where it's going.
How could we ever imagine something so far-fetched,
I know.
Clay?
And the book comes out on January 6th. 7th,
Oh.
January 7th. Sorry.
It's about to be like, oh wow, a choice.
It's kind of a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, also, you posted a stack of books that you used for research that I
Yeah.
think had us all asking questions. And I did not I did not know half of these books existed. The Penguin Book of Exorcisms?
Yeah.
Ah,
Right?
yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, like it is I I mean, half of the fun of working on any book is that you get to kind of go down the deep dive. You get to do the deep diving. When you're not final girling, I suggest deep diving.
My two
And
states,
It really is, yeah.
are you done deep diving? It's time to do some final girling. But yeah, like I mean, I want to imbibe. I want to like read every book that like lives in the world. Like, and it's funny that you mention, oh God, why am I blanking on CJ's new book, American Rapture? Like, I really want to read American Rapture, partially out of fear of overlap, but also just like devout curiosity of all things CJ, um, because I'm a fan, and like just we're in a moment right now where there's a lot of shit happening, and it's like how do writers, how do artists kind of manifest that? Like how do we articulate that kind of anxiety and that fear? And those real world fears, I think, have a fictional kind of correlative to them. And but we've been writing about these things forever, and that's why these books, why doing the research, like just finding novels that are just so like of their time, but also timeless.
Yeah. I'm super excited now
yeah, very
to
excited.
read that book. I'm
Mm,
like,
mm,
yes. Yeah.
okay, I need to figure out how to talk about it. So this was my first foray into how do I
Workshopping.
articulate what the heck I've been doing for the last year of my life.
Get to workshop your synopsis.
Yeah.
There's got to be.
Workshop your book talking.
I know. Jeez Louise. There's got to be a better way, but I'll do it. I'll figure it out.
We'll do
I'll
it.
take notes.
You'll get it.
I'll get it one
Yeah.
day.
Well, thank you so much for coming on here today and chatting with me. Where can people find you online?
Me?
Yeah, you.
I'm very Googleable. I'm a Googleable guy. I'm on the Twitter, the Instagram. I'm trying Threads and Blue Sky and failing. Kind of like I don't know.
I saw your post on Threads.
Hey, there you
Oh, there
go.
you go. There
Hey,
you go.
it
Someone
works.
saw it.
That was where I saw this stack of books.
Yay! Mission accomplished.
So
I final girled all the way.
we final girl today.
This is the horror version of girl bossing. It's just a final girling.
Final girling.
I final girled too close to the sun. That's the that's the progression of this. I am on Twitter and Instagram, both under Yikes Yaika. So you can find me pretty easily. I tend to like interact more than I post though. So I'll just say that like heads up. I'm not a big poster. I repost. I like people's things. Lurker.
But you final girl so well.
Yeah.
Thanks.
When I'm not final girling, I am deep diving. So.
Yeah, true. I have ADHD. I'm deep diving so much.
Punch dab. Punch dab.
Right, well, thank you guys again so much.
Thank you. We
Yeah,
got to talk
thanks
about
for
books we
having
love.
us.
Woo,
So
yeah,
fun.
that is always a good time. Books in the Freezer is a bi-weekly podcast. We post episodes every other Tuesday. You can find us on Threads, Instagram, and TikTok at Books in the Freezer, or send us an email at booksinthefreezer@gmail.com. You can find show notes for this episode and all previous episodes at booksinthefreezer.com, where you will find links to the books mentioned as well as the resources mentioned in the episode for you to check out. And if you're looking for a way to support the podcast, those can also be found on the show notes at booksinthefreezer.com. There you'll find affiliate links and links to merch and links to the Patreon, or you can go to patreon.com/booksinthefreezer. There are 3 levels of support, a $1, $3, and a $5 level. So check that out if that sounds interesting to you. And if you're looking for ways to support the podcast without spending any money, fear not. There are ways you can do that. One of those ways is to leave a review on a site like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, I believe after you've listened to one episode, you can leave a star rating, or you can respond to the Q&A stickers at the end of episodes. And on Apple Podcasts, just leaving I believe they let you leave just a star rating, but also leaving a few words is very helpful. And you know what? Nice for me. Like recently, Krista17 left a lovely 5-star review with the title A Spooky Girlie's Delight. So thank you. Absolutely made my whole week. And thank you to all of you who have taken the time to do that. I have been your host, Stephanie Gagne. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time on Books in the Freezer.